Don't kick, don't miss, I might scratch back. Don't kick, don't miss, I might scratch back. I don't have the time to read your mind. Figure out why you're mad like I've been unkind. I put on my shoes and I'm already through. Why does it matter if you don't belong to me? Don't kick, don't miss, I might scratch back. Don't talk it, keep walking, don't change my mind. No talking, keep walking, don't change my mind. Well, you can hear what you started, don't wanna discuss. Put your hands on your mouth if you can't hush. You need to be first, you need to be tough. I can see already that you're not enough. No talking, keep walking, don't change my mind. Now wanna tell you again, 'cause I don't wanna waste my breath. I'm all about action, honey, 'cause when you get it, if you have it, it's there. No talking, keep walking, don't change my mind. No talking, keep walking, don't change my mind. Well, you can hear what you started, don't wanna discuss. Put your hands on your mouth if you can't hush. You need to be first, you need to be tough. I can see already that you're not enough. No talking, keep walking, don't change my mind. Come on now. Yeah. All right.
Boys and girls, how lucky are we right now to be joined by my very good pal, one of the great modern rock and roll singers out there on the road. When we can get out there on the road, you must go see Nikki Hill. Nikki, welcome to Tough Cookies. How you doing today?
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm hanging in there, brother.
Where are you right now? Tell everybody at home where you're sitting.
At home in New Orleans, Louisiana right now. So it's nice and hot and swampy. And yeah, I turned the AC off so that I could hear you for this. So if I start sweating, forgive me.
Well, listen, Nikki, as the Tough Cookies know, I like to sweat.
Yes.
And when we do the show, I always say I'm schwitzing for you. And right now, you are being watched by a lot of people around the world who are at home schwitzing from watching you perform on Tough Cookies. So
I'm
I want to
into it.
thank you for that little spicy number that you guys just gave us. Nikki, I want to go back. I've read that you grew up singing in church. Is that correct?
That's right.
How did that prepare you for a world of rock and roll? Like, how did one setting translate into the other?
You know, for me, man, they run so parallel that it's insane. You, playing and singing in church is like it's like showbiz 101. You can understand why so many of the rock and roll greats started in the church. I mean, you're getting instant call and response. You're seeing the power of music overwhelm people's bodies, overwhelm their voices. And that's about as rock and roll as it gets. I don't know. It's the same energy, the same vibe, the same raw power. It's like I learned the term raw power way before I knew who Iggy Pop was. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, well, when I've seen you perform or I've heard you, you have something uh, special. It's modern, but it's also, I feel like, in the tradition of soul music. Some of my favorite performers, like Etta James, uh, James Brown, that I hear when you sing and when you perform, it's really electrifying. It's really red hot. You put out a record a couple years ago called Feline Roots,
Yeah.
and I love the record. And I've seen you perform with a T-shirt, and the T-shirt says Chitlin Circuit on it.
Right there, my friend.
Hold it up for the tough cookies. Come on.
How do is that?
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, that's the Chitlin Circuit shirt. My friend Ross, and I'm from North Carolina originally, so fellow Carolinian, makes these really dope shirts that kind of hit on music culture from the 50s and 60s. And I saw that a few years ago, and I just had to get my hands on that.
Well, we talk a lot about the Chitlin Circuit on the Tough Cookie Show, and I've interviewed a few artists that have performed on the Chitlin Circuit. Talking about Bobby Rush, we had a fabulous story from Don Bryant, fabulous Memphis soul singer, and recently we had a fabulous conversation with Dion, who traveled throughout the Deep South with Sam Cooke on one of Sam's last tours, and
Yeah.
he talked quite a bit about what it was like in the early 60s traveling along that route. Um, I wonder if you could speak for a minute. What does the Chitlin Circuit mean to you musically, culturally? As a modern black singer in America, what does it mean to you?
It's interesting to think back of even just the fact that Black people had to find safe and acceptable places to perform, during Jim Crow. And I know the Chitlin Circuit sort of began to establish itself in the 30s. But it's wild to think that it had such a hot point in the 50s and 60s of so many artists that I know we both equally admire. And to think that they had to go to these areas, especially in the South. And I know the Chitlin Circuit runs up the East Coast and into the Midwest as well. But for me, growing up, it was definitely something that you have the term Chitlin Circuit attached to it, so it already has this kind of I feel like it's sort of doing a reclaiming kind of thing. You might
Yes.
reject something like chitlins, but then, here's this spot where I can really be myself. Here's where we throw down. Here's where we're with our people, and I can express myself. We can take it to church. We can, get rowdy. Um, and I love that vibe of it. It took me a minute as a kid to flip that around, and I didn't really understand that sort of reclamation part of
Yes.
being able to just take it back and make a space for yourself. So I now doing what I do, I appreciate it a lot. There's still, even in modern times, there's a ton of places that I go where I don't necessarily feel like it's a space for me.
Mm-hmm.
And the best part, though, rather than letting it be this downer, is I can say, well, here I am, and I'm going to kick the door down and make the space. And I do that with art.
Yeah.
Um, so the Chitlin Circuit, in that case, is sort of taken a new place for me of thinking back on all these. I mean, people with immense talent too. Just legendary. Like it's insane. That they wouldn't be accepted in spots. So it's a nice way to carry on the tradition. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you do it beautifully. And the thing about you talk about this reclamation idea. It reminds me, when I was a kid, my parents would take me up to upstate New York to these hotels that people refer to as the Borscht Belt. I don't know if you've ever heard that term, but these were
Yeah.
hotels that the Jewish people who weren't allowed to stay in other towns or other hotels, they would stay in these hotels. And out of that little circuit of hotels that they, in a somewhat derogatory way, but it was somewhat reclaimed, the Borscht Belt, came some of the greatest comedians of the 20th century. And, when we think about the Chitlin Circuit, we think about some of the greatest, most innovative performers in music history. Uh, pe-
Absolutely.
people that really created what we know as American culture. And I'm just
And
so.
isn't it amazing that they created something so beautiful out of something so ugly? You know, the Chitlin circuit only had to exist because of something so ugly, and it's and just like chitlins, you know, you're making cuisine out of hog intestines. Um, the Chitlin circuit, they're making world class entertainment despite being excluded from all these amazing venues, and the fancy white clubs and the the fancy theaters and stuff. You know, so it's amazing how much of our art has come out of such ugly times.
It's true. And Nikki, you also remind us that rock and roll, what we call rock and roll, in many ways was created by black women, in my opinion. And I feel that you're part of a long tradition of innovative, soulful black women in rock and roll. We're talking about some of these women that never really got their due during their time. I'm talking about Sister Rosetta Tharpe. I'm talking about Big Mama Thornton. I'm talking about Big Maybelle. I'm talking about Barbara Lynn. And I'm just I hope that is that something that you think about? Do you see yourself in that tradition?
Well, that is an insane compliment. So first of all, thank you so much. I'm quite, I'm quite touched. But I mean, when I'm doing what I'm doing, that's absolutely 100% my stance, and it's been since I started. Was again, like I was saying, there's so many places that I play all over the world where I might not necessarily be in a place that is making a space for me, but the important part is to think back about what happens when you create that space and when you force that door down. So and it's interesting always to me that American history has sort of neglected that idea that Black women created rock and roll. So I like to visually make that stance. I like to musically make that stance. You know what I mean? It's definitely really, it's really important for what I do, and it's only become more important as I've done this longer and longer. Because I'll be honest, I was really naive about it getting started. I really kind of thought that or at least I thought all rock and roll and all fans of these various, R&B and soul niches, I thought that they were very aware of that. And I've discovered more and more how much of that education is really lacking even in the rock and roll scene. So the more I noticed that, I was like, wow, this is got to be a part of my stance, you know what I mean? And part of the message. And even visually, you go out there and people see the poster, they see the Feline Roots album cover, they don't know what I look like, they don't know any of that kind of detail. And I love being able to do that. It's weird to think we're still doing that in 2020, but that's what we're doing.
We are, and Nikki, it's a lot of the reason why I do this program, this broadcast, Tough Cookies, is because I like to take this time when we're all kind of in a funky place. And
Yeah.
I like to call attention to where we come from, where the music came from, where our culture came from, where the history of our country, how it has evolved, warts and all. Let's talk about it, and we also focus on the future, where we're headed, and how we can make things better, and how art can lead the way. And to that point, Nikki, what are you working on? Are you doing any performances online? Are you working on any new music?
Yeah, I've been live streaming, not with the amazing bravado that you've been doing, but been live streaming, which has actually made me pick up the bass. So I've
I've seen you play bass. I've seen you play bass on the trio. Real good.
teaching myself to play, which has been actually kind of one of the most fun and intensive things I've been doing actually during this time, and it's helping me write music a little differently when I'm using it to write and stuff like that. So that's been really cool. That's a great discovery. You know what I mean? So I'm working on that, and I want to do kind of start working on a little bit of a series about Black women in country and rock and roll. So I'm in the midst of figuring out exactly how I want to do it. So far, I'm just kind of proposing this kind of Instagram series that I think I'm going to start just to, again,
I love that idea. I love that idea.
the education out there. And I want to see it from somebody that looks like me. And so that's another thing I'm working on, which is also partly educating myself too. So, and just when I'm in the midst of doing that, I'm doing a lot of research and finding out a lot of stuff, new stuff that I didn't know myself. And then speaking of Chitlin Circuit, you got this. It's funny you brought that up because I was rereading this book. So, that's what I've been spending my time doing. That's
Well, Nikki, listen. We have before we say goodbye and send you back out into 125-degree heat of NOLA. We have a lot of people watching this show. I call it Tough Cookies because the people watching the show are tough cookies, and the show is about them. We have a lot of people that are going through difficult times and going through a lot of stresses. People have lost their jobs. People have lost loved ones. We have people who watch the show from hospitals. We have nurses and doctors and frontline workers who watch the show. And we are trying to uplift people's spirits with this show, right? And your music does that for me. It's uplifting, it's red hot, it's electrifying, it's soulful. Before we go, I'm just wondering if you could just give us a quick couple words of encouragement for our tough cookies.
for all the tough cookies out there. Look, you are stronger than you will ever know. You can get through and climb over anything you want to. And you've got a ton of people that have your back, including me. So I hope you hang in there.
I love you, Nikki. Say hello to your band. I hope to see you in New Orleans. I hope to see you out there on the road. Keep singing, keep playing bass, keep making great records, and I'm going to talk to you real soon. You're a real tough cookie.
Sounds great, baby. Talk to you soon.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.